Well, greetings, being. We're doing something a little bit new and different here. Stephen Morrison, creator of Spiritual Workout. That's me. And what I'm doing here is simply sharing some information. Spiritual Workout is all about how we think about things. And what I'm finding in the age of this global pandemic and this virus is that when it comes to fear and dread and worry and anxiety, that's natural, normal, that's okay. And yet I'm finding that there aren't a whole lot of other places to put our attention. So even if we are in fear and we're wanting to move out of it, that's fantastic. But then where do we go to? So what this is all about is just offering up a broad array of different ways to think about what's going on. I'm not here to endorse any of it. There's tons and tons of material out there. Very specifically, I'm sharing information that I received from a group called Evolutionary Leaders. You can find them at evolutionaryleaders.net. This particular email that they sent, and I'm going to just read you a little blurb about who they are. They sent an email with contributors, I don't know, close to about 24 contributors, different people who are evolutionary leaders, as they call themselves, or are called by other people. And these are just some points of view. So let me tell you just what Evolutionary Leaders says about themselves, and then I'm just going to read through the email because the link is down here. Not everybody's getting emails like this. Lots of people are. Even people who get them don't necessarily read them. Some people prefer this format, so that's what this is all about. So the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, I'm reading from their website, says the Evolutionary Leaders Circle is a group of thought leaders from diverse disciplines who come together in synergy to help support a shift in consciousness. That's a big theme for me in spiritual workout world, a shift in consciousness. The Source of Synergy Foundation shares the work of the members in the circle with the public, you and me, in the spirit of open inquiry through social media, various educational opportunities, and lively exchange. These opinions and offerings do not represent an official position or endorsement by the members of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle or the Source of Synergy Foundation or me. I'm just here, like I say. I got an email. Now I'm going to tell you a whole bunch of what's in that email. So forgive me as I deal with the technology here just a little bit. And I'm just going to start reading through these contributions. The first one is from somebody who you may be familiar with. His name is Deepak Chopra. And he says, let us see this adversity as a time of reflection and a time to come together to help each other and to be there for each other. We don't respect the ecosystem of existence, he says, which includes all living beings. Life depends on the balanced food chain, which humanity has ruined, he says. So watch your diet, watch your daily rituals of good sleep, stress management, and movement. This is an opportunity for us to create a completely healthy lifestyle. We must respect life. If we think of life as sacred, if we think of life as divine, then this challenge will only make us stronger. That's Deepak Chopra. Okay, so this next piece comes from Joan Borisanko. I don't know her work personally, but I know she's been out there as long as I've been in this world. And she says, virus as opportunity. She writes, rush, worry, and stress are the pandemic that will persist long after the virus recedes. Oh, I'm going to say that again. Rush, worry, and stress are the pandemic that will persist long after the virus recedes. So instead of getting panicky and stocking up on a month's worth of toilet paper and margarita mix, she says, remember to invest in rewiring your brain and nervous system for calm, healing, and yes, optimizing your immune system. How to do that, she gives a lot of the basic ways that we've been always hearing and talking about. She says later, remember that 80 to 90% of illness is caused or worsened by stress. You might recall that I'm a medical scientist, she says, with a doctorate from Harvard Medical School. I was one of the pioneers in the field of psychoneuroimmunology, how the mind affects immunity. So, take the opportunity the virus is providing to be curious about how you could rush less and be more present in your life. You can help your body resist infection and enjoy life in the process. She goes through again some techniques about rest and sleep and all of that. Now, let's move on to the next contributor, Dr. Bruce Lipton. I am a fan of him and his work. He writes, Coronavirus, do not fear the boogeyman. And he wrote this on March 10th. I received this email, I think, on March 16th, and I'm recording this on March 18th for the third time. Okay. The world is currently gripped in fear of the scary coronavirus, he writes. Let's get one fact clear. If you have ever had a cold or flu in your life, odds are it was the result of a coronavirus infection. Yes, coronaviruses cause colds. But we are being programmed with the belief that this particular cold virus is deadly, he puts in quotes. This fear has shut down concerts, conferences, major public events, etc. And again, he was writing this before the last few days where that has all increased even more. His basic idea here is he's saying that he talks about the people who have died, that they already had compromised systems, that healthy people get cold and flu symptoms, and those who are already sick and near death's door may experience the grim reaper, he says, when infected by the virus. True, sick people are more vulnerable to the virus. Healthy people really have nothing to fear, he says. And he further says, as presented in his book, The Biology of Belief, stress is responsible for up to 90% of illness, including heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. When an individual is in stress, the release of stress hormones shuts down the immune system. And I'm going to skip and skip and skip. And he says, if you're someone with a compromised immune system, it is supportive to surround yourself with loving family and friends, nature, and positive thoughts, as well as any other nutrition and vitamins that you might already be taking for your health and well-being. Following your intuition about what is best for you is key. The point here is that no matter who you are and what your state of health, you will only benefit from steering clear of the fear and supporting yourself in whatever ways feel best to you. Please remember the truth of quantum physics, the most valid of all sciences on the planet, he says. Consciousness is creating your life experience. Are you being conscious of disease or of health? Wishing you all health, happiness, and harmony, he says. And I did skip over a line that he writes here about the conclusion he's making is that the fear of the coronavirus is more deadly than the virus itself. The fear of the coronavirus is more deadly than the virus itself. Okay. Now, this, moving ahead, is a message from the coronavirus. So bear with me just for a minute for my own personal little commentary here. And that is, in spiritual workout world, we know that everything is energy. That means everything is alive. That means that everything has a consciousness. Now, I don't know if you've ever had any experience with psychic mediums. You know, sometimes they can talk to ancestors, friends, relations who have died, talk on the other side. Sometimes we have pet psychics who can communicate with pets. And now we have a psychic medium, those are my words, I don't know what he calls himself, who is actually communicating with the virus itself. His name is Jeff Vanderkloot. And this is what he says. There's been a lot of talk about the coronavirus. When I connected with this novel life form and asked it to tell me about itself, what came through was a list of its top gifts, followed by a message for humanity. And I'll just read all of it. I was somewhat surprised, he says, and also comforted by the information. My hope is that these words will help people to relax and trust that life is acting with benevolent wisdom. So first, the gifts of the virus, there are 6. Number 1, slowing down humanity's frenetic activities. That's certainly happening. 2, activating networks of cooperation. 3, spreading helpful DNA. I'll take their word for that. 4, upgrading humanity's immune system. 5, creating the conditions for peace and well-being. And 6, saving lives, especially over the long term, by strengthening the web of life. Now, here is the message that the coronavirus had to share. This is the virus speaking, and there are 4 paragraphs. I'm gonna read them all. The virus speaking. My friends, it is true that I am here to bring closure to the inharmonious ways of being that are causing harm to humans and the whole web of life. All the same, I am not a vengeful being or anything that is intended to be destructive. I am simply the rebalancing agent in the overall equation of life's evolutionary process. I'm going to say that again. I am simply the rebalancing agent in the overall equation of life's evolutionary process. By fighting me with fear in your hearts, you oppose the larger natural systems and cause me to take other forms. What I am and my fundamental purpose will not be deterred, for I am life itself acting through the available forms of distribution. The virus that you see me as is one of an endless series of permutations. This kind of process is one of the ways I innovate life forms and deliver new DNA sequences that will eventually be shown to be helpful. The back and forth between humanity's collective immune system and the virus is raising consciousness as humans examine their interactions, and it is literally increasing the intelligence of the superorganism that is the species, us, humanity as a whole. These tests are normal, it says. I repeat, these tests are normal. For those who can hear this message and embrace me easily, you already know that fear is a much more lethal poison. For those who will not be comforted by these words, one day you will know that I come as an act of love. When you can open to the love that is at the very heart of this situation, the crisis that your media and governments decry will transform into a flower of life, spreading new consciousness and multiplying circles of cooperation. Pay attention to your thoughts and see if you can identify the benefits of redirecting humanity's attention from incessant wars and violence to the common enemy that I am willing to be perceived as. Love will go this far and farther to bring healing to the mind of a young species that is still in the process of remembering itself as a divine incarnation. Yes, you are a divine incarnation capable of fabricating realities based on goodness and beauty and compassionate understandings, actions, and beliefs. Believe me when I say that I too am here as an act of compassion. Accepting me in this way will lighten your heavy burden, for the divine sends only love your way. Sometimes this love takes curious forms in order to circumvent your intricate defenses against waking up to your own glory. I can assure you that the most functional strategy will be to embrace me as a friend of the human family. And that brings that piece to a close. Again, that was Jeff Vanderkloot. All right, here's a quote from James O.D. I can't off the top of my head remember the name of his organization. He says, could this virus actually help restructure the world economy, help us build community, reinforce the role of good science, and force us to stop flying around so much and show us we can save the environment by e-commuting more and be less frenetically busy. Hearing that several times. Will we take the opportunity to step back and heed the message, he asks. There's a piece here too, moving on, called Beating the Coronavirus as Simple as ABC from Lynn McTaggart. She's well known for her work about the field, the quantum field, and specifically the power of intention. She mostly just links to something else here that I'm not going to dive into, but there is a contribution from her as well. Okay, this is called Spiritual Leadership to Help Humanity Address the Coronavirus and Beyond. Spiritual Leadership to Help Humanity Address the Coronavirus and Beyond by David Gershon. And I'm just going to read a few paragraphs that he has here. He writes, humanity needs our spiritual leadership as it encounters this latest manifestation of our collective consciousness called the coronavirus. We need to directly help those in our spheres of influence and all of humanity raise their frequency from fear to love and compassion. There that is again, from fear to love and compassion. This will not only protect them from contracting the virus by strengthening their immune system, but also help them, us, start a positive contagion to transmute the virus, a blessed opportunity for all of us to do good. Ultimately, this virus is a fear epidemic, not an actual health emergency. Let's say that again. Ultimately, this virus is a fear epidemic, not an actual health emergency, as 98% of the people who contract it experience flu-type symptoms, get over it, and build up healthy antibodies. Those who suffer more or leave their body were already preparing to leave and are primarily the elderly. There will be more experiences coming over the next few years like this one that will test our fear transformation capacity. Our fear transformation capacity. Can we go from fear to love and compassion? And it will provide opportunities to awaken humanity from its slumber into spiritual growth and service. A key element of our reinventing the planet work is transmuting fear at the deepest level of our psyche about our viability as a species, our fear about our viability as a species, into hope about our future based on game-changing personal action. This can and will transmute whatever fear comes our way. In other words, perhaps it's not as challenging and difficult as we think. My commentary, I'll get out of the way. This next piece is by Stephen Dinan, who I happen to know, well, as far as I know, runs the Shift Network. There's that word again, Shift. And his piece is called Pandemic Preparation and Positive Steps to Take. Pandemic Preparation and Positive Steps to Take. I believe crises carry the seeds of opportunity if we approach them in the right way, he says, which means clearly understanding the facts and strategizing a response that helps us emerge stronger and wiser on the other side. The best case scenario is ultimately for us to approach this global pandemic as something that calls us into a higher level of collaboration, creativity, and conscious living. We can emerge living more sustainably, peacefully, and enjoyably with our local communities. We can develop more skills for independent lifestyles. We can cultivate a higher quality, less expensive lifestyle with less stuff. We can remember who we are and our true purpose, which is to ultimately leave our planet better for the next generation. Sometimes it takes an apparent tragedy to wake us up. The coronavirus pandemic can be a wake-up call if we face the facts soberly and move into immediate right action to mitigate the damage and optimize the upside. And there's more that he links to on his own blog. This next one is called Phase Shift Has Arrived. There's that word shift again. Phase Shift Has Arrived. Hold on to your hats. And this is by Daniel Christian Wahl, W-A-H-L. There is a lot here. Let's see how much we get to and through. He writes, let's make this the catalyst for the redesign and regeneration of the human impact on Earth. We can heal the Earth and her people, regenerate ecosystems everywhere, regenerate our cooperative nature, and build renewed social cohesion through community solidarity. This is the time to accept that change is no longer an option, but now forced on us at a scale that the current economic system will and should not recover from. The time to recreate vibrant bioregional economies that incentivize ecosystems regeneration and a re-regionalization of production and consumption is here, he says. Time to switch to Game B, a globally cooperative humanity worthy of its name. United in the commitment to create conditions conducive to life and redesign the human impact on the planet from exploitative and degenerative to healing and regenerative. Talks about the pandemic, talks about stock markets, collapsing, production, air travel, air pollution dropping. Talks about a model that shows perhaps 100 million being infected by this virus. And then he says, let's not plan for return to business as usual after this. Let's not return to business as usual after this. Okay, a little side commentary. We talk about a shift in consciousness, a shift in paradigm. That doesn't mean some combination of what we had and what we are birthing, but it means leaving one behind and not the other. So this theme of not planning to return to business as usual, this theme of whether we're looking at economics and politics, there's that conversation going on. So I just ask that we all think about, what does it mean to literally, we talk in spiritual workout all the time about transforming ourselves. I used to be this and now I'm this. And it's a transformation that what we've left behind has been left behind. And I see this theme coming up more and more. And I personally kind of like it. So let's not plan for return to business as usual after this. The climate emergency and the obscene levels of inequality within and between countries indicate that what we were doing wasn't working and heading for imminent collapse and synchronous failure anyway. We're now pushed to a global mobilization of resources and civic participation that the planet has not seen before. Let us not waste time by pretending that what we had before was working or is worth returning to. And he goes on about that. So let's move on to another contributor. This next one is Dr. Michael Wayne. And he is talking about the Chinese medicine macrobiotic approach to protecting yourself from coronavirus. And he writes, as a longtime practitioner of Chinese medicine and a longtime proponent of eating a macrobiotic diet, I often think of the opening passage of the seminal book of Chinese medicine called The Yellow Emperor's Classic of Internal Medicine, also known as the Neijing. I'm sure I didn't pronounce that correctly. In the beginning of this 2,200-year-old book, the Yellow Emperor asks his personal physician, Kibo, why people aren't as healthy or live as long as people once did, to which Kibo replies that people have gotten out of balance with the natural order of things and have lost the way, meaning the Tao, and that because of this, their poor dietary and lifestyle choices were leading them to serious health issues. That's an interesting observation from Kibo, especially since his observation came 2,200 years ago in an epoch that was much simpler than our current times. If Kibo and the Yellow Emperor thought people had lost the way back then, imagine what they would think now. In our era, he continues, people have surely lost the way, what with the level of serious health issues that abound. And as we currently see with the threat of the coronavirus, nature is on a trajectory of self-regulation to help reestablish the natural order of things, as nature will do. We belong to the planet, not the planet to us, is a spiritual workout concept. The planet manages itself by seeking balance. That's what he's talking about here. To help reestablish the natural order of things as nature will do, since people have lost the way. Yet, as the virus or the threat of the virus wreaks havoc on routines and lives, this can be seen as a learning opportunity. Just as the Chinese word for crisis, and he shows the characters, is comprised of the words danger and opportunity, opportunity is there if we choose to see it. A virus, including the coronavirus, is a biological agent that reproduces inside the cells of a living host. Once the host cell is infected by the virus, it's forced to produce thousands of identical copies of the original virus at an extraordinary rate. Viruses are not malicious, instead they are intelligent, full of information, and always on the lookout for a susceptible host. And when humans lose the way, that's when they become susceptible hosts. To date, 5,000 species of viruses have been discovered. Each time a new virus is mapped out, it's considered a novel strain. That's why the coronavirus is considered novel, because it's a new strain. And because it's a novel strain, and there's no known way to stop its trajectory right now, outside of the public health measures that are being advocated in order to flatten the curve, it's creating a certain level of heightened anxiety and panic. But if we come back to the way, to the Tao, we can help arrest the growth of the virus and at the same time not be susceptible host. We hear this theme throughout what these contributors are offering. He continues, according to the Tao Te Ching, we should never destroy that which may appear to be our enemy. Instead, we must seek to achieve harmony of opposites, the harmony of opposites. This is the teaching of the way. Within our body are trillions of microbes. When we are in proper balance, these microbes are beneficial and help maintain good health. Viruses are also microbes, but they only proliferate in a body when we are not in proper balance. And more of that. So let's just keep on keeping on here. I'm looking. Okay. Sorry. Okay. This next piece is from Doctors JJ and Desiree Hurtak, Hurtak. And they say we need to seek a higher faith rather than a worldwide fear. That's the name of their piece. We need to seek a higher faith rather than a worldwide fear. And they write, much of the world media is pushing humanity into a psychology of fear rather than an understanding of how we are to use our greater powers of higher consciousness to overcome negative realities. That's spiritual workout, higher consciousness, how we think. They go on. This is what a living faith is all about. The bottom line, be practical and cautious, but most importantly, be daily renewed through the indwelling power of your higher self. In daily practice, we are to be both cautious and co-creative in the way that we can share the daily bread without caving into a lifestyle of fear that would diminish the opportunity to fully use our gifts of positive psychology and sociology, even in the face of danger. Okay, they have lots of different things that they're saying here. Now is the time to activate your living faith that provides you insights and ultimately provides you with eternal life and the joy of using the gifts from on high, rather than a life of fear of the shadows of death. Let us be the light, the love, and share the power of our faith, understanding the power of the divine. And they quote a psalm, be as Mother Teresa, and I'm skipping, be as Mother Teresa and do not deny the outpouring of the power of gifts from the Holy Spirit in your life. Be blessed, be strong, the power of God's working, speaking within you, peace be with you. And I skipped it here, but there was another piece. This all relates to spiritual workout world, and they had a little clip in here about also trusting our own gut. So listening to inspiration is something we talk about in spiritual workout world, and we're bombarded with all kinds of information. So we are always being called upon to discern and sort through it all. And I think what they're getting at here is that our personal connection to spirit, however that manifests for us, is something that's an important tool during a time like this. Okay, moving along, this is by Mitchell Rabin, or Rabin, or Rabin, I'm not sure. The title of his piece, Natural Remedies for COVID-19 and Rational Solution-Based Thinking and Results. He writes, we are all in the grip, no pun intended, of the media hysteria. It's become embedded in the field, unhealthy. Some good facts come through, more fear, but some facts. Again, discerning, right? Beyond both, he says, what to do about the coronavirus? Think and take a look at how the mind influences our immune system. And same with vitamin C. Let's focus not on fear and emptying stadiums, but on rational thinking, science, and solutions. And here's an excerpt from his page. I thought that's what that was already. At the end of the day, he writes, a lot of our health is in our own hands. That largely means that we keep our immune system well fortified through lifestyle choices we make regarding attitude, emotional wellness, stress management, centering, diet, exercise, sleep, steering clear of toxic foods, water, air, and environments, enjoy plenty of laughing and loving, cultural and artistic self-expression and enjoyment of others, healthy relationships, healthy sexual expression, a daily diet of love, appreciation, and gratitude, dwelling on healthy thoughts, listening to beautiful music, qigong, meditation, essential oils, living with purpose, and serving what is higher and larger than ourselves, like all sentient life, all aggregate to strengthen our immune system and resolve to inform our commitment to health and well-being. Laugh all you want. And like the famous Norman Cousins, you may just laugh yourself to health. He continues, do you think that these assertions in the face of this serious pandemic are silly? You may. But the science supports these assertions. We know factually what the experience and perception of stress does to the immune system. It is measurable, and it has been measured for decades. We know about adrenaline and cortisol release into the blood. We know what happens when we're in cerebral and heart incoherence, or its opposite, coherence, and the effects these have on our physiology. He goes on, and more in that realm. So let's skip to the next contribution here. This is by Lynnea, Lynnea Lombard. She wrote this on March 14th. It looks like her work is that she refers to is New Stories. Her title here is Collapse and Regeneration, Walking the Line Between Denial and Despair. Collapse and Regeneration, Walking the Line Between Denial and Despair. Okay, so she writes, a couple of months ago, I received an email from Jen Mueller, our soon-to-be new executive director at New Stories. That's her organization. She was curious about an article she had received on deep adaptation, or adapting to likely collapse. Her question galvanized an outpouring of my thoughts, again, this is Lynnea speaking, that have been percolating for months on collapse and regeneration, which has become the emergent theme of New Stories' work. For years now, New Stories has utilized the two loops map of a world in transition, That gets me excited. The first loop represents the rise and fall trajectory of our current civilization based on a set of worldviews and values which emerged in the scientific revolution of the late 1700s. We talk about this loop as having peaked and being in decline. The second loop shows the birth cycle of a new emerging civilization based on a different set of beliefs, a different consciousness, and values which offer a more integral model for our relationships to Earth and other humans. Initially, it too seems to decline before the new ideas and values and systems begin to gain strength and become a new blueprint, a new possibility, a new kind of civilization for humanity. This pattern parallels the metaphor of imaginal cells emerging in a cocoon, initially being killed by the old cells before they get strong enough to coalesce into a butterfly. I'm getting excited. The Berkana Institute, this is all news to me. The Berkana Institute, News Stories, and others started developing this map almost 20 years ago. Quickly, a new element was added to the map beyond the two loops, a bridge where it might be possible for people to cross over to the regenerative curve of the second loop without needing to fall all the way into collapse or to have been part of the early experimenter work. For most of its lifetime, News Stories has worked to strengthen the upward curve of the second loop, the second loop, and build the bridge from one paradigm to another through story and on-the-ground community building. Our work has both emphasized support for those working in existing institutions on the first loop who are developing new approaches and those starting or continuing on the second loop. Both pieces are essential, she says, keeping things working even as they fall apart and building the new. She goes on. Now we are rapidly becoming aware that none of us are going to be left out of the collapse of the multiple systems in which we live. None of us are going to be left out of the collapse of the multiple systems in which we live. Wars may be happening elsewhere, but fires, floods, hurricanes, bomb cyclones, tsunamis, crop failures, earthquakes, and now pandemics are all around us. There's no way out of the experience of the collapse. We are already in it. Even those who may have brought their million-dollar apartments in underground bunkers in the desert are not going to be able to avoid the impact. No matter what your privilege, we are all still interconnected. And when the food supply runs out, the grid goes down, communications stop, water runs out, and millions have a virus, we will all feel it. It's essential that we learn how to hospice. This is so funny because I've never seen her. I've never seen this organization, but this is what I talk about all the time. Oh God, where do we go? It's essential that we learn how to hospice the passing of the old so it spews as little destruction and death as possible, while we also midwife newly emerging patterns of compassionate, caring, and interconnectedness. We have to have the new to look at, to cultivate. That's what all of this is about. Nowhere is this more evident, she writes, than in the current crisis of the COVID-19. The collapse is screaming from the headlines, and simultaneously the regeneration is flooding my email box, she says. Everywhere, people are coming up with new ways to connect and communicate, creatively adapting to being together in new ways. Our work over the next few months and years is to walk the line between denial and despair in ourselves and in our communities. Neither are an option. Neither are an option. We must face the truth of the collapse that is unfolding and do our best to meet the challenges of rapid change without falling into despair. We need to feel our grief and also find joy in celebration. I believe that holding the tensions between these opposites will eventually engender the transcendent function that will take us to a new, never before experienced consciousness. We must be brave and steadfast and take care of ourselves and others. We each have choices to make, and the choices we make today determine tomorrow. May we continue to co-create the future we want to live in together. I'll be following up with her. Okay, moving right along. This is called Coronavirus Crisis, Touching, Not Separate. And this is somebody named Terry Patton interviews Thomas Hubel, Hubl. I've seen his name many times before. Don't know anything about him. Not really. And let's just see what's written here. I'm honored to release our new podcast conversation with the remarkable Austrian mystic, Thomas Hubl. speaking healthy but in mandatory quarantine in his home in Tel Aviv. We are calling the episode Touching, Not Separate. Let's see. Thomas pointed out something crucial then about the ways people commonly relate to the system. Many of us commonly speak negatively or at least critically about, quote, the system of human society, economy, and civilization. For good reasons, there's much that's unhealthy and needs to change. However, Thomas observes that we are not truly separate from the system. What do we even mean when we say the system? And he suggests that even though we rightly intend for it to improve and transform unsustainable habits, we may first need to learn to love the system. I hear that as being present, accepting everything as it is, no resistance. And finally, I think this insight can help us practice in a more integrated way. And I find myself contemplating the organic transformation of our stance, our worldview, and our very ways of being, and how that can evolve how we relate to the fear in ourselves and in others, as well as the larger systemic turbulence and even sometimes scary breakdowns. So that was somebody interviewing somebody else and offering a bit of what the other person said and a bit of their commentary. And then I threw a bit of mine in there too. So good luck with all that. Okay. Now we're moving on to a piece by Chief Phil Lane Jr. Chief Phil Lane Jr. And the title is Prophesied Impact of Incurable Diseases on Global Economy and Beyond. March 1995, UN Headquarters, New York. Now, where is this all going to go? Let's see. And I'm reading what's written here. Beloved friends and relatives, it is my prayer that each of you and all of our beloved relatives of our human family are moving forward in the most graceful, healthy, compassionate, and unified manner possible. In March 1995, I was invited to make a presentation to UN Secretary General Javier Perez de Cuellar and the World Commission on Culture and Development at UN headquarters in New York. No making fun of my non-accent. My presentation, he writes, Prophecies, Realities, and Guiding Principles for the Future, included a 7-point summary of the prophesied global challenges facing our human family that I had experienced and that had been shared with me by Indigenous elders, spiritual mentors, and teachings over the years. As well, I shared the 16 guiding principles for building a sustainable and harmonious world publicly for the first time. These 16 guiding principles emerged from a 12-year process of reflection, consultation, and action within Indigenous communities across Turtle Island. Since elder-guided consultation began on these guiding principles in 1982, they've been shared widely across the Americas and beyond. They are rooted in the concerns and wisdom of thousands of Indigenous elders, leaders, and community members, as well as in the best thinking of many non-Indigenous scholars, researchers, and human and community development practitioners. And then there's an image and a caption. 25 years have now passed, and we are now clearly seeing the beginning of the global impact of these 7 monumental challenges intersecting with growing global impact. The potential catastrophe we are now facing, as prophesied, has the potential to be immense. At the same time, I understand that all that has, is, and will happen is far, far beyond my understanding and perspective. From my experience, only through consultation, compassion, unity, and principle-centered, unprecedented, unified action between all concerned will we have the capacity to manifest peace on earth, as prophesied, sooner than later. After 75 winters, I am beginning to more deeply understand my father's counsel since I was young. And there's a quotation, Son, there's a sacred rhythm of life, an ebb and flow, expansion and contraction, and times to expand and times to consolidate. And finally, he writes, more than ever before, we as a human family need to forge together a respectful, principle-centered way forward to a just and prosperous future for us. It appears we have been given a very important time of consolidation, integration, unification, and reflection on the concrete, principle-centered actions needed to co-create the clear beginnings of peace on earth by 2030. All right. Moving along. This is by a woman named Sarah McCrum. Don't know anything about her. And her title of her piece, For Once I Have to Write About the News, she says. Let's see what she has to say. There's been a change in the way the news media is working. I've noticed it especially in the last 12 months. And she's writing this. It's not dated. It seems recent. It started to grow last year with the focus on climate change at every opportunity. It became much stronger with the bushfires in Australia, and it's become even more obvious with the coronavirus. During 2019, we reached a point where I sensed that the reporting of climate change was beginning to make the challenges worse than they actually were. I don't mean that the reporting was making it sound worse than the reality. That's normal and to be expected. I mean that the level of focus and fear-mongering was manifesting and speeding up the disruption of our climate. On the principles of manifestation that I've studied for years, this makes sense. What we pay attention to grows. Yes. What we're afraid of expands. Yes. And with the focus of the world's media on the same topic every day, that's a lot of people's attention and a lot of fear. When they first started reporting the brush fires, it seemed to me like regular reporting at a quiet time over the holiday and New Year period. But at a certain point, the energy changed, and we were told that Australia is on fire. However disturbing and distressing the situation for the affected communities, Australia, which is a vast country, was not on fire. But at that point, it seemed that the intensity of the reporting started to fan the flames of the fires and was literally making them worse. And now we have corona. I'm not an avid news follower, and I try to avoid mainstream media because it's clear to me the choice of what constitutes news has little to do with what's significant and meaningful, but I'm absolutely shocked at what's going on. As I flew to Singapore 2 weeks ago in a plane that was 3/4 empty, I felt I could pick up a fever psychosomatically. The fear was tangible, and I'm wondering at what point we'll discover you can catch a virus by watching too much news. It might sound disrespectful. I understand that a new virus spreading across the world is a scary prospect, but the energy of this situation is bizarre. The fear that's been manufactured in the extraordinary images of people in full protective gear, gas masks, etc., are creating an energy that is more potent than the virus itself. It would make sense to me that in a wise, mature society, the media would play a role in helping people to keep calm, focus on being healthy, and protecting the vulnerable. There's an interesting side to this that I keep thinking about. It started with the brush fires. There was a global response, and the consciousness community got busy organizing a global online meditation to bring rain. I even know an 11-year-old girl who organized a rain dance with her friends, and I'm sure there were many others. At first, it seemed as if nothing happened. A few drops of rain and the fires continued to rage. But a couple of weeks later, it started to rain, and it rained and rained and rained. Here in Queensland, we've had the wettest summer imaginable. In February, only a handful of days were sunny, and all the downpours have continued into March. There's been major flooding, and we are no longer hearing the story of the brush fires because they've been stopped. Now, this might be a sign of the new normal, just another extreme weather event, but there are 2 points that stick in my mind. The first that I remember vividly is an Australian brushfire expert on television predicting that those fires were just the beginning. The long-range forecast back then was for a long, hot, dry summer. What happened? The other thing I remember was that when the fires were at their peak, I received many emails asking if my husband and I were okay. One woman said she was praying for rain to fall all the way across Australia. At the time, it seemed odd. Most of the country is desert. It was very unlikely that it would rain everywhere, but every day now, when I get up to another day of pouring rain, gray clouds, and intense humidity, I think all those people who prayed for rain and wonder if there's a connection. As these scenarios play out, I get the feeling that we're witnessing a wonderful phenomenon, the rising of global consciousness and the ability of an aligned crowd using subtle technologies such as meditation and prayer to influence world events. Lynn McTaggart, who was mentioned earlier in this thread, has shown time and time again how this works through her books The Field, The Intention Experiment, The Power of Eight, and her massive group intention experiments. For a group to come together through the power of social media and have this effect is very encouraging for the future. It's important to point out that we can never be sure of these outcomes. I'm not claiming that the global meditation caused the rain. Lynn McTaggart doesn't claim that the global experiments caused the outcomes. However, I've seen these apparently coincidental occurrences so often and in so many ways that I have no doubt there's something significant going on to merit a lot of attention. When I see the irrationality and craziness of the world's media as it increasingly focuses on a single topic and whips us into a fervor of fear, I feel that I am witnessing the dying screams of an old way of doing things as a new way emerges into the light of day. And there's that idea again. She continues, can you imagine the power of well-designed group meditations and prayers for climate stability? Yes. Or powerful group meditations for cleaning pollution? Yes. Or global healing for the coronavirus itself, so the drama simply quiets down and the disease is allowed to disappear as quickly as it emerged? Yes. Anyone who's bored with the news would do well to spend their time learning how to meditate effectively, how to pray in a way that works, and how to manifest more of what you want to experience in the world and less of what you don't want. We're going to have her in spiritual workout. You may or may not be successful in your desired outcome, but you will learn so much along the way that you'll be very grateful for having put time into it. And you get the gist of what she's saying. All right, I think this is our last one. No idea what this is. This is Jared Hewitt, and the title of his piece is 2020 Vision and Head and Heart Energies. 2020, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. 2020 Vision and Head and Heart Energies. 2020 Vision and Head and Heart Energies. 2020 is an extraordinary year, he writes, in so many ways. We started off with a rocket ship of energy, and the planet has been increasing in speed and frequency ever since. This year is very much focused on vision, who we are, who we've been, and who do we wish to become. In so many ways, everything coming to a head right now in the world is representative of this immense energy and the structural changes we are collectively and individually experiencing. So I wanted to simply share a bit about my perspective, an energetic perspective on what the coronavirus represents. I was asked a question last Sunday. Is this dated? No. But it seems pretty recent. Again, this is March 18th, 2020. I was asked a question last Sunday, and I wanted to share the answer and add a bit to it, as well as include a very strong energetic claim at the end to help you center, whole, heal, and ground. The topic was specifically coronavirus and how to create in a way that wasn't reactive or driven by panic. Here's my answer. A lot of what's been happening in the world is all about the head and heart coming together and how that looks in the space of vision, who we've been, who we are, who we're becoming in this moment, which is all there ever is. There's a larger psychological lesson to this, which reflects the energetic, and it's about choice and balance and bringing the head and heart together. And from that space, utilizing facts and science and information, which requires us to trust that we've created at larger levels. And if we don't trust those, which requires us to trust what we've created at higher levels. And if we don't trust those, then we need to change them or create spaces wherein we do. There's a space where people would like to return to simplicity and trust, which is heart, and where we want facts to be, which is head. We want the desire, we want and desire honesty, and at a wider level, there's such fear and me, mine energy that these manifestations are inevitable until we as a whole can begin to fully love everyone. And what I mean by that is not just lip service kind of love, which we sometimes give ourselves as well, but an actual showing and being of love. Right now, we have an unprecedented opportunity to balance head and heart. We've had Atlantis, where it was all head, and we've had Lemuria, where it was all heart. And right now on Earth, we're very much working our way through the screaming inner child who wants that toy now and does not want to share. This is a major balancing or opportunity in calling forth for that masculine, feminine, and child, and for an emergence and merging or marriage of heart and head working as one, mirrored in our pituitary and pineal glands as well, by the way, and this is parenthetical, which create how we see ourselves and create our world. Wherein we know as the child as well, we are safe and taken care of and can therefore see with our eyes, hear with our ears, and accept love and create what we desire based on a new dynamic of balance inside and out. In these moments, our job is to unite the I am that I am, bringing all of us on board, head, heart, and our playful, joyful selves, and find the knowing love and leadership inside of us, which is how the return to centered, balanced emotion, feeling, and facts all come into play, head and heart, head and heart. So with that in mind, here is our intention and claim. And he goes on with that. All right, folks. So that was it. So again, these evolutionary leaders, evolutionaryleaders.net, they sent an email. That's what you can link to down below. I just thought perhaps putting it in this form would be of use and value. We'll see. I hope so. It's all about thinking. It all matters how we think. And as is repeated over and over in these contributions, thinking in fear tends not to be so useful. Now they've offered us a whole bunch of different places to put our thoughts. So I invite you to do the same. And until next time.